Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make these adorable baby booties. I can't wait to try them on my niece. You've seen her in a couple videos, Sophia, but here they are. They're adorable. I can't wait to show you how to make them. They're super easy. You can literally make them in like an hour or faster. I always feel like I loom a lot slower than most people, but anyway, so I'm going to show you how to make this pair and then how to add this little white fringe around the outside and a little like braided bow at the front. If you have any questions at all, please ask in the comments below and we'll reply as soon as we can. Okay, let's get started. The materials you're going to need for this project are scissors, a knitting needle, a knitting hook, your flower loom, and your favorite colored yarn. So what you're going to do is you're going to do a slip knot. Tie it twice around your finger and then pull the loop from the back over the one in the front, and then do that once more and pull the loop through and you have your slip knot. What you're going to do with this is you're going to attach it to your anchor peg. This is the peg on the outside of the loom. And make sure you tie it so it stays snug. I don't know if you can see, but I'm going to try and show you. I left quite a bit of yarn hanging from the anchor peg. So this is my non-working yarn. Okay, this is the tail right here. And as you can see, I left it pretty long because that's what we're going to need to use to sew closed the booty. So now what you're going to do is you're going to grab your working yarn, that's the yarn that's coming from your ball of yarn, and wrap it behind the first peg and around. Back and front, back and front. This is called the E-wrap. You're going to be doing this all around the loom. This is how you're going to get started with your cast on. Once you reach the end, hold your yarn there and push all the loops on the pegs down. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go from in front of the last peg you did. So I'm going to show you that again. So you're not going behind, but you're not going to go to the next peg. You're going to go back the way you came from. So you're going to go through the front of it, and then the rest are going to go through the back. So remember, the first peg that you're going to do is going to be through the front, and the rest are through the back. Again, E-wrap around the whole loom and come back to the front. As you can see, there's nothing joining the first peg and the last peg, and this is good. We want this to be open. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab your knitting hook, and you're going to throw the yarn from underneath over the peg. So grab the loop at the bottom of the peg and throw it over the second loop you made. What you're doing here is you're creating your cast on. For the purposes of this project, this isn't counting as your first row. This is just your cast on. Do that all around the loom until you reach the beginning. So what you're going to do now, again, as you can see, the first peg and the last one are not joined. What you're going to do is you're going to grab your working yarn and you're going to purl a row. I'm going to show you how to purl. This is different than E-wrapping. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab your working yarn and put it on top of the peg in the front, but not around it. And now with your knitting hook, grab your loop, the one at the top of the peg, pull it a little bit, go from underneath the working yarn and grab the working yarn. And now pull to make a loop, and there you go. You have a loop. Now take the whole thing off the peg and put the loop that you've just made onto the peg. Okay, might look confusing, but I'm going to show you again. You're going to put your hook to grab the loop that's on the peg. Then pull it a little bit so you have some room. Go underneath the working yarn and pull the working yarn until you create your own loop. Take it all off the peg and put the loop that you made back onto the peg. And then pull your working yarn a little bit to keep it snug. Not too tight. There you go. You've created your loop. Now take it all off and put it on the peg. So right now you're purling. So you're going to do this all around the loom. And once you're done, this is going to have been your first row. So you have purled your first row. This is the last peg. Putting it back on and tying it. Okay, now as you can see, we're still not closing the first peg and the last peg of the loom. There's still a space in between them. So that's what we need. Now push all the loops down, grab the working yarn, make sure you can see that there's a gap there. If there is no gap there, you've joined them and you need to start over. So grab your working yarn, And what you're going to do now is you're going to E-wrap. So now that you've already done your cast on, you can go from behind the peg. Not in front, but behind the peg. Like this. Back, front, back, front, back, front. I'm going to show you that one more time. So the last peg, you're going to go through not the front, and you're also not going to go E-wrapping around the whole loom and joining the two pegs. You're just going to grab your yarn and go around the back of that peg and then follow that all the way back around. So you're going to be E-wrapping back the way you came from. So continue to E-wrap all the way around the loom until you get back to your first peg, and you're going to hold on to your yarn here. Now you're going to knit over. This is now your second row. So now that you're knitting your second row, you're going to continue to knit over all around the loom. What you want to do is you want to continue this pattern of knitting a row and purling a row for a total of 9 rows. So this is now, I've done 9 rows. One's knitting, one's purling, back to knitting, back to purling. So continue that pattern, and that's going to give your boot a really nice finish. So now that you've done 9 rows, you're going to grab your yarn, and now we're going to join the 2 pegs. So first, take off the anchor peg, and this is going to loosen your project, and then just pull it through the middle, and remember, this is the yarn you're going to use at the end to close your bootie. So just keep that away from you. Now, grab your working yarn, and as you can see, we have the gap because we never joined them until now. So what you're going to do, the next thing we have to do, because the last one was a purl row, we're going to be E-wrapping. So now you're going to E-wrap around, and you're not going to go back through the last peg, you're going to go to the first peg and E-wrap all the way around the loom. So continue to do this all the way around the loom, and then when you're done, you're going to knit over. So once you've knit over all around the loom, you're going to, this is now your 10th row. So what you're going to do is count that as your first row after they've been connected, and you're going to now continue the pattern of knitting and purling. So now that you've already knit one over, which is your row number 10, you're going to purl row number 11. So this is row number 11, and you're just going to purl all the way around the loom. So you did 9 rows before you joined them, and you're going to do 7 rows after you join them. So you're going to do this repeatedly, continue the pattern, one of purling, one of knitting, and then when you're done, this is what it's going to look like. So remember, you did 9 rows before you joined them, and now you've done 7 rows after you've joined them. So we haven't finished yet, we still have to cast off. So what you can do is grab your working yarn and measure it kind of around your loom, and this is where you're going to cut. This is going to give you enough yarn to close off your boot at the toes. So you're going to grab your yarn and you're going to feed it through your needle. So now that your yarn is on your needle, what you're going to do is you're going to feed it through the loop on the first peg all the way through, and then take that loop off the first peg. So do that on the second one. Put your needle through the loop, pull the yarn through, and take the loop off the peg. What you're doing here is you're casting off. So this is going to let you grab onto the bootie and tie it really tightly shut. So do this all the way around, right up until you get to the last peg. And then when you do this and run your needle through the loop, you'll notice your boot comes right off the loom. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull really, really tight, and now you've closed up the toe. So just feed your needle a couple times through the end of the boot so that you can close tightly that little gap there in that circle that is created when you close it. So just pull it through a couple times. I put it through quite a bit. And then what you're going to do is you're going to tie a knot when you're finally done putting it through enough times. And once you tie a knot, just cut off the excess. And now turn your boot around because you've been working on it inside out. So this is the right side of your boot. You can see the nice little pattern that the purl and the knitting created. And this is your tail that you've left. And that's what you're going to use to close the boot. As you can see, that's where the foot goes, and this is where you close the bootie on the side. So what you're going to do is you're going to feed your needle through the tail that you left at the beginning hanging off your anchor peg. And this is what you're going to use to go from one side to the other on the open end of your boot. Make sure you do this on the right side. The first time I made this boot, I closed it on where the leg goes through and the foot goes through, which kind of sucked. But just close it tightly all the way down the side of the little booty. So this is good. Do this with care just to make sure that there's no holes and make sure it's not bumpy. And then when you're finally done, just put your needle through the inside and tie a knot, and you got your booty. So as you can see, this is for a newborn. It's very small. If you want to make it for a bigger foot, this is the area that we made when it was closed. Just make it longer, add more rows. And this area where the foot goes in is the area we made at the beginning, the 9 rows. You can make that longer too. Depending on how many rows you add to one or the other, you can make the boot a lot bigger. And therefore you can fit little babies to bigger kids. So have fun with making different sizes for your little ones. And this is what it looks like when you do this video all over again for the second one. So now what I did for the rim is I just grabbed some white yarn and I fed it through my needle. And what I did was I basically fed it through, and I only used one piece of yarn. We've been working with 2 pieces of yarn every single time we do projects, but because this is a little accent, I want it to be a little thinner. So I'm only using 1 piece of yarn. And I'm going to put it in through the inside of the boot so that the excess can stay on the inside of the booty. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of the loops that are already made in a very easy pattern. So through the bottom and through the top, kind of like sewing. And you'll be able to see it as you go. And you can fix it really easily if you put it through the wrong loop, because you'll be able to see where it is. So do it all the way around, and then when you get to the end, push your needle through to the inside of the boot and tie a knot, with the remaining yarn that you left when you first started. So just tie a knot and then cut off the excess yarn from the inside of the booty. And then you'll have finished your little rim. And you can do this in any color. I chose white because it stands out a little bit more against the mustard yellow color. But just make sure that when you tie your knot, you're not putting it in through the same loop you made the first one so that it won't come out. And just tie it tightly and cut the excess yarn. Now for the bow, I took 3 pieces of white yarn and I made a knot on one end. And I literally just held it with my teeth while I made a braid. So make a braid with these 3 pieces of yarn and then tie a knot on the other end. And then make a little bow in whichever way you like. Attach 2 pieces of yarn to it, feed them through to the inside of your booty, and then tie a knot just like you did with the rim. Tie a knot so that the bow will stay right in place. And at the finish, just cut off any excess yarn, and there you go. Congratulations! You've made 2 adorable booties for your little one or your friend's little one or whoever. They're adorable as gifts, and you can just play around with lots of colors. Have fun!